So this is a Bosch Fuel Distributor. Here's a part number here, 0438101012. This is for a classic Mercedes. This is a 6-cylinder fuel distributor. As you can see, there's 6 slots here for the fuel injector lines to go to the fuel injectors. There's the EHA valve right there. And the discussion is this central control piston, which regulates the flow of the fuel. As you can see, it goes up and down. It regulates the flow of fuel to the fuel injectors from the lower control chamber to the upper control chamber, and it tells how much fuel to come to the injectors based on the airflow meter to which it's attached on a lever, so that when you accelerate, it pushes this up, which gives it more fuel, and when you let off the pedal, it gives it less fuel. So over time, these control pistons here have a, under here, this is the screw plug, and then this is the locking nut on the side here. You just have to remove this centerpiece for this operation to replace the O-ring seal, which keeps the fuel from dripping out of this control piston around here. Because what happens, they wear out with age, and they sit on top of the airflow meter, and they'll drip gas down into the rubber boot, which will leak down to the intake, and then you're going to have the smell of gasoline. Now, that's not the only incidence of maybe having a fuel leak problem, but it's just one if you don't see anything externally leaking fuel, because it took me a while to understand it myself. Then chances are, when you pull the airflow meter off of the vehicle intake, you look down the throttle sensor, throttle position sensor butterfly, and you'll see laying in the intake, you'll usually see fuel down there, and that's where you're smelling the gas from. I guess it heats up and tries to evaporate, but of course it doesn't very well. There's a rubber O-ring right here that's also can get wore out, which will cause a vacuum leak, and you're going to play hell trying to find one of these things, because what I found out is that Mercedes-Benz and its vehicle parts and even its technical manuals is all proprietary. So they're very secretive on what they want you to have access to, and of course there are things you can get to find out, and people have made other videos you can see to find things out, or you just have to be mechanically inclined to figure it out. But the specifications for this, if you have to replace this O-ring seal inside here, you're going to have to loosen this screw plug off the locking nut here, and to do that you need to mark the position of this thing. So I scribed edges. You probably can't see it on here. Even I can't see it. I don't have my glasses on, but you see on here, you scribe marks on here to where it's at, and then you counterclockwise at a time in revolutions of removing it, how many times it takes to unscrew it. And to get to the seal, you just pull this off, because this screw plug underneath it is where the seal's at. And then once you do that, you can renew the seal. But then you screw it back in. But you have to use a dial caliper. I use a digital one. And Harbor Freight's a great place, isn't it? So the depth of this thing is not very deep, as you can see. But it has to be technically 6 millimeter, 0.6 millimeter is what the factory calls for. Now, these things can be different, and if they are and you want to do that, you can renew it to what the depth of what you take it off at. So the recommendation is you measure it with a dial caliper for the depth of how many millimeters it is, and then the factory adjustment is actually 0.6 of a tenth of millimeter of depth, because you get too much, you end up with the wrong adjustment and may not run at all. So that's Mercedes' recommendations, because it sets here, and as you can see, it goes, this is how it's supposed to work. And the more the airflow meter pushes up on it, the more fuel comes out of these ports right here for the fuel injectors. And then if it lets off the pedal, it pushes this, releases the pressure on this piston here, this control piston, and then it gets no fuel. So that's basically how it works. And this is the lower chamber, this is the upper chamber. So there's two parts to this, and then that's how it operates. And like I say, I made this tool so it sets in here like that, so I can turn it. I'm not going to move it because I just set the adjustment on it. I don't want to mess with it. But this is a more lengthy video for that. So good luck with your Mercedes. And this here is the fuel distributor. And there's other videos that show you how to break this down and repair it even more. I haven't had to do that yet, but I did have to replace this O-ring seal for the control piston. Control piston plunger, I think it's technically called. So, and this is how it works. But it'll leak fuel here and not into your intake, and it'll smell gas, and you'll think, man, I have an exhaust leak, or my O2 sensor ain't working right, and I'm smelling gas exhaust, and this is from what it is. And just so you know too, that this part number is interchangeable with a lot of different models. So you're able to get, if you need to replace one of these things, you can find one. And this is what I'm learning about this Mercedes adventure here, is that, they don't want to talk about it, and they don't want to help you, and people try to rip you off, but you can find parts reasonably for these things. You just have to know what to look for, and the part number is the best way to look. And a lot of these are on a lot of different models. Of course, you have to have the 6-cylinder. If you have a 6-cylinder, if you have an 8-cylinder, you have to have an 8-cylinder. And of course, the ports dictate that. This is 6-cylinder, there's 4 cylinders, and there's 8-cylinder. Maybe if you're real fancy, you have a 12-cylinder, and I haven't seen what the injector is, fuel distributor is for that, but this is for the 6-cylinder. Have a great day.